Hello and welcome to Business 360. I'm Shireen Bhan. The headlines that we're tracking for you this evening. The Sensex and the Nifty gain 1% this week despite declining on Friday. The mid-cap index up 2%. Autos, real estate and consumption stocks lead the rally. On the back of a GST expected cut, consumption stocks back in vogue. Strong monsoon and front-loading of rate cuts by the RBI also lift sentiment. Bernstein anticipates a great switch from Capex to consumption. Fed Chair Jerome Powell will address his last keynote address at the annual banking conclave at Wyoming's JacksonHole. The street awaits signals on inflation policy trajectory amidst Trump's constant jibes at Powell and the Fed. 5 days to go for the 50% U.S. tariffs to kick in. Trump's trade advisor Navarro attacks India yet again, calls New Delhi a laundromat for Russia. China's ambassador to India says silence emboldens the bully, saying China stands firmly with India in opposing the U.S. tariffs. Bajaj Auto resumes Chetak deliveries as rare earth shipments arrive from China. Rajiv Bajaj says the company is only getting light rare earths and there is no improvement in high magnet imports. Bajaj welcomes the proposal to cut GST to 18%. Even though a near-term slowdown in sales is expected, calls it a small price to pay for a long-term gain. That's an exclusive. L&T continues to get good order flow, says Chairman S.N. Subramaniam. Bets big on the real estate business as sales touch 4,500 crore rupees. Could consider a listing in a year or two. Also says work is in progress to improve return on equity to 18%. That's another exclusive. Gaming companies reach out to the government on complying with the new bill passed by Parliament. Companies seek more time to refund users and plead against immediate ban on financial transactions. Also seek clarity on existing games and providing subscription services. The insurance regulator considers capping annual health insurance premiums at both the product and portfolio levels, plans to link it to medical inflation and release a consultation paper soon. That's an exclusive. Walmart reports a 10% rise in international sales led by China, Mexico and India, says Flipkart and Myntra are key to its quick commerce growth strategy. The company is well positioned to take advantage. Walmart's e-commerce sales rise 25% worldwide. Facebook parent Meta agrees to spend more than $10 billion for GoogleCloud services. This is a big contract for Google as it chases larger rivals like Amazon and Microsoft in the cloud business. The Supreme Court allows those excluded from the Bihar voter list to file an application using Aadhaar as the proof of identity, directs political parties to assist in filing applications. The Election Commission admitted to the court that 65 lakh people have been removed from the voter roll in Bihar, with elections scheduled in November. The Supreme Court also stays its order on relocating stray dogs in the Delhi NCR region, directs civic authorities to release dogs in the same area after vaccination, also clarify that dogs infected with rabies or displaying aggressive behavior should not be released, prohibits the feeding of dogs on streets, orders authorities to create designated feeding areas. An organization backed by the UN declares a famine in Gaza for the first time, warns deaths could increase exponentially. Israel continues to attack Gaza, killing 30 people overnight. Let's start with the market action today. The Sensex and the Nifty did snap a 7-day winning streak. The Sensex lost nearly 700 points and the Nifty fell below the 25,000 mark. That was the picture for the day. The Nifty bank losing about 1% as well, and bank stocks led the decline. That's what we saw this afternoon. But despite the decline on Friday, for the week we're up 1% on the Sensex. The Nifty also similar story, and the mid-cap index higher by almost 2%, outperforming the blue chips. Surabhi standing by to wrap up the market action, closing the week, Surabhi, but we've got a big week coming up too.
Well, it was a quiet end to what was otherwise a fairly promising week for the market. After a long string of losses, we actually had a good 6 days of gains, but that was truncated on Friday. Finally, the markets are coming to some profit-taking, which means that by the end of it, the Nifty was down a little over 200 points, and we had reduced our weekly gain on the Nifty to just about 1%. So what led the declines? Well, actually a bit of everything. All-round profit-taking is what we saw. Metals, bank stocks, both private and PSU banks, as well as a lot of the FMCG and consumer names, they were leading the declines. In fact, on Friday, pharma was the only sector that saw some green. So let's talk about the Nifty losers then. And this reflects in the form of Asian Paints, Ultratech Cement, a lot of IT names like HCL Tech, ITC, TCS. They were on the downsides. Big stocks like ITC, Reliance, also not lending too much support for the bulls. While I talk about IT, it's important to make a specific mention on Wipro because there was no real cheer of that acquisition. By the end of it, it all fizzled out and Wipro was finally down about 0.5%. So what was gaining on Friday? Not too many stocks actually. Buyers went back to the auto side of the market. So names like Mahindra and Maruti, they found some green, but the list is pretty feeble after that. Now, the mid-cap market did fare better. At an index level, the mid-cap index didn't fall as much, but the advance decline ratio was fairly negative, almost 1,700 stocks declining for about 1,000 stocks advancing. Let's talk about the buzzers. The gainers included names like Vodafone Idea, some excitement building up as the market was pegging its hopes again on some sort of an AGR resolution. Z Entertainment and AB Fashion were some of the other noticeable gainers. And defense stocks, while the overall market was sluggish, defense stocks, particularly tier 2 names, they had a great Friday actually. So Zentech, Apollo Micro, Idea Forge, DCX Systems, gains between 5% to 12-13% on many of them. Now the short point is that this week is telling us the Nifty is facing resistance around the 25,000 level. It's had a great run from the lows, almost a 700-point rally from the weaker levels which we saw at the start of August. But now it is stalling and it's looking for more ideas. The excitement around GST seems to be fizzling out, and going forward it's going to be all about the tariff deadline, that 50% tariff deadline that's looming come the 27th of August. So we'll keep an eye out on this, along with, of course, statements that come in from Jackson Hole as we get back to trade on Monday.
Yes, lots of big developments to track. So, many thanks for joining us. Well, consumption stocks back in vogue on the Lal Street. Potential GST rate cuts, strong monsoon, front-loading of rate cuts by the RBI, all lifting sentiment. Bernstein anticipates a great switch from Capex to consumption. Nimesh is standing by with the details. In fact, Nimesh, this Capex to consumption theme started with the budget, didn't it?
Oh, absolutely, Shirin. So the last 4 years was all about Capex, but now it looks like there's going to be a big comeback for the consumption as a theme. So that's the big question which has been talked in the market as well. Is this a time for a big reset from Capex to consumption? First, look at the Capex basket. In the last 4 years, they've relatively outperformed, largely on the back of the government push. So if you look at the Capex basket, everything in that basket has actually done very well. It'll come up on the screen. The capital good index, the infra index, the industrial index, all are up between 25 to 35%. This is a 4-year return CAGR for the Capex basket. Compared to that, the consumption basket has relatively underperformed. Within that, the auto index is up 24%, but the rest, like the consumer durables, FMCG, as well as oil and gas, are up between 12 to 15%. So relatively underperforming the Capex basket. Now, what are the triggers for the consumption to do well from here on? The first trigger came in the budget itself when the government shifted the focus to consumption from Capex by cutting the interest, by cutting the income tax. So that was the first big trigger. Then followed by front-loading of rate cuts by the RBI. The monsoon has been so good so far and has been progressing well. And last but not the least, the GST rationalization now looks like a reality. So these are the few triggers. And that's the reason why Bernstein has put out a note this week, and they're anticipating a great switch from Capex to consumption. In fact, in that basket, they've actually done a mild overweight on staples, and they continue to be overweight on durables as well. This is a big upgrade they've done very recently. However, within the consumption basket, they are very bullish and overweight on QSR, retail, and autos. These are the three segments where they believe money could be made, and they are actually underweight or equal weight on utilities and underweight on industrial. So again, as Bernstein put out, there is a great shift expected, a switch expected from Capex to consumption, and looks like, given all the triggers, consumption can really do well from here on.
All right, Nimesh, thanks very much for joining us. And of course, we're waiting now for the GST Council to ratify the proposal sent in by the centre that should aid consumption. Investors from across the world have their eyes fixed on the Jackson Hole symposium later tonight. The chairman of the US Federal Reserve, Jerome Powell, will address at 7:30 p.m. India time. This will be his last speech at Jackson Hole as his tenure ends in May next year. Special coverage coming up on CNBC TV 18. We will, of course, begin with the opening bell on Wall Street at 7 p.m., followed by the speech of the Fed Chair Jerome Powell. Now, India is staring at a 50% tariff on exports to the U.S. in the next 5 days. President Trump threatened to double the current 25% tariff rate, citing India's oil purchase from Russia. But the U.S. is not acting against China, which is in fact the largest buyer of Russian oil. President Trump's top trade advisor, Peter Navarro, launched a fresh attack on India. Navarro said India does not need Russian oil and it's profiteering from the trade. He also accused India of being, and I quote, a laundromat for the Kremlin. Navarro has long been a critic of India's trade policies and even termed New Delhi the Maharaja of tariffs. Meanwhile, China's ambassador to India attacking the U.S., saying silence and compromise only emboldens the bully. He went on to say that China will firmly stand with India and uphold the multilateral trading system with the World Trade Organization.
Prior to the invasion of Ukraine in February 2022, India bought virtually no Russian oil. I mean, it was like 1% of their needs. So the argument somehow now, as the percentage has gone up to like 30 and 35%, that somehow they need Russian oil to cool their homes or cook or drive their cars is nonsense.
The United States has imposed tariffs of up to 50% on India and is even threatened for more. China firmly opposes it. In the face of such acts, silence or compromise only emboldens the bully. China will firmly stand with India to uphold the multilateral trading system with the World Trade Organization at its core.
Well, important statement coming in there from the Chinese ambassador to India. Now, the U.S. State Department has responded to CNN News 18's query on the telephonic phone call between President Trump and Prime Minister Modi in June. It has said, and I quote, "We do not comment on private diplomatic conversations," end of quote. The Trump administration has also refused to issue any readout of the call. However, the U.S. reiterated its claim that the U.S. brokered the ceasefire reached between India and Pakistan post-Operation Sindoor. Remember, President Trump on multiple occasions has claimed that he convinced India and Pakistan to agree to a ceasefire. Now, Prime Minister Modi told Parliament on the 29th of July that no leader from any country had asked India to stop Operation Sindoor.
दुनिया के किसी भी नेता ने भारत के ऑपरेशन रोकने के लिए नहीं कहा.
Bajaj Auto has resumed deliveries of its e-scooter Chetak after overcoming supply constraints related to the shipments of rare earth magnets from China. In an exclusive conversation with CNBC TV 18, Rajiv Bajaj said the company has started receiving clearance for light rare earth magnet supply, but saw no movement in the imports of high rare earth magnets from China just yet. Bajaj also welcomed the proposal to cut the GST to 18% for two-wheelers, even he predicted a near-term slowdown in sales as people might delay buying vehicles in anticipation of the GST rate cut, but he called it a small price to pay for long-term gain.
That, you're not doing them a favor by bringing in 18% in place of 28%. It is still high compared to, let's say, a median of 12% by as much as 50%. It's very welcome. It's fabulous. It's fantastic. It'll be great. But it is still on the higher side. 100%. There will be a slowdown, but that needs to be qualified by the time period. For example, the slowdown which has already started, and let's say, for example, arbitrarily that the new policy comes into effect from 1st October. Definitely industry will see a slowdown between now and end of September.
Rajiv Bajaj on the proposed GST cut. From one newsmaker to another, L&T continues to get good order flow from the market, says Chairman and MD S. N. Subramaniam. He also betting big on the company's real estate business and a potential listing in a year or two. Speaking exclusively to Lata, the L&T chairman said work is in progress to improve the return on equity to 18%.
Today, the backlog of orders to be executed is more than 6,25,30,000 odd crores, which means from an EPC point of view, we are more than 2.5 years of work as we look forward. And these are fairly fast-track orders in the sense many of them have to be done in 2.5 years, 3 years. So as an organization today, we seem to be on a firm footing. We have 5 orders from NTPC for boiler and turbine. We have 8 orders for boiler and turbine from Adani Group. And in a short while, we expect some more orders. Any rationalization being attempted will be helpful. I'm extremely happy that the government is thinking about it. And if they do this rationalization, it's another positive step towards, in my view, ease of doing business. When we talk at the management level, our executive committee level, at the board level, we focus on return on equity. We have from 12%, we have pushed it to 17. I'm reasonably confident there was an internal target of getting to 18. We will do that.
That's L&T's S.N. Subramaniam. Now, Wipro will acquire Harman's digital transformation solutions business from Samsung for $375 million. Brokerages have provided a mixed commentary on the deal. Nomura says the deal will strengthen Wipro's existing offerings. Morgan Stanley says the acquisition can be dilutive on the company's margins. Apollo Hospitals promoter and managing director Sunita Reddy has sold 1.25% stake in the healthcare company for nearly 1,400 crore rupees. The move was to cut down the pledged holding of promoters. Shares of Apollo Hospitals remain under pressure post the announcement today. IRDAI may soon put out a cap on health insurance premium at both the product and portfolio levels. Sources tell us that the IRDAI is considering linking it to medical inflation and could soon release a consultation paper on the same. Shareholders of Yes Bank have approved the extension of Prashant Kumar's term as MD and CEO. After this extension, Prashant Kumar will remain as the CEO till April 2026. He took over as MD and CEO at a time when the bank was going through its revival in 2020. This is his second extension. The earlier one was in October of 2022 when he was reappointed for a 3-year term. On to CNBC TV 18 exclusive, gaming companies have reached out to the government to comply with the new bill passed by Parliament. We learned from sources that companies have pleaded against an immediate ban on transactions and sought more time to refund users. Ashmit is standing by now with more details. Ashmit, gaming companies knocking on the government's doors, seeking clarity on the implementation of the new law. More importantly, we're already seeing many companies closing down their real money games.
Well, it's just less than 24 hours after the Rajya Sabha, the parliament as a whole, had passed the online gaming bill. And with this bill likely to soon turn into an act, there is a beeline that industry officials are making towards the government, towards the ministry, to get more clarity on the implementation, on the compliance of this bill. One of the key issues that they're likely to raise before the government is that if there is an immediate ban on financial transactions concerning any of these platforms, while that may bar users from putting in fresh money, that also bars the companies from refunding the money that the users had deposited with the platform. So that is something that they're likely to see clarity on, perhaps a staggered implementation schedule. Number 2. In-app purchases. There are social gaming applications which provide users the facility of availing of some tools on payment of a certain amount of money. These are called in-app purchases. Are they permissible under this new legislation? That's the second key clarity. The third is real money gaming companies, if they were to continue the same suite of games that they currently have without the money component, if the money deposit is removed, will those games be allowed to survive under this current regime? That's another key clarity that has been sought. And finally, if these non-money games are provided to users in the form of a service and a subscription fee is charged, is that something that is permitted under the current legislation? These are a whole host of queries on which the industry is looking for answers and is now, as we speak, making a beeline for the government for seeking greater clarity.
Ashmit, many thanks. We'll head into a break, but up next, the Supreme Court stays its order on relocating stray dogs in Delhi. NCR directs civic authorities to release them in the same area, but after being vaccinated and sterilized. More details when we return. ChatGPT maker OpenAI is setting shop in India. The AI company will open its first office in New Delhi later this year. India is ChatGPT's second largest user base after the US. The corporate office is aimed at working more closely with the Indian government, developers and other stakeholders under the India AI mission. OpenAI says it's already registered a local entity and has started hiring local talent. Now, retail giant Walmart reported a 10% rise in international sales led by China, Mexico and India. Walmart says Flipkart and Myntra are key to its quick commerce growth strategy and the company is well positioned to take advantage. Shilpa is here with the commentary coming in from Walmart on India and its Indian entities. Shilpa.
Well, you're right. Walmart has beaten revenue estimates in the second quarter of FY26. It clocked a revenue of $177 billion, which was ahead of the forecast of about $174.5 billion. Now, the company has raised its full-year net sales growth guidance as well to as much as about 4.75 compared to the earlier range of up to about 4%. Now, e-commerce sales were also up about 25% globally. And this, like I was telling you, gave the company the guidance to raise the confidence to raise its guidance as well. But what really stood out this time in the earnings is the company's commentary on its quick commerce bet in India. Now, Walmart said that international sales jumped 10.5% led by Flipkart, along with Walmex and China as well. Now, this as India is right at the heart of Walmart's aggressive quick commerce push. Now, this has even showed up in the company's financials with the international gross profit margins coming under pressure this time on the back of its QCom investments in the country. Now, Walmart says that customers are preferring faster deliveries and the company's positioning itself to capture this growth efficiently. Now, it said during its earnings call that Flipkart now operates 300 fulfillment centers, which is enabling deliveries under 15 minutes, while Myntra has built about 60 micro-fulfillment centers that can serve fashion shoppers under 30 minutes. Now, the focus, Walmart said in its earnings call, is on placing third-party inventory closer to consumers to improve the speed and efficiency. And, the recent fund infusion into Flipkart's marketplace arm further underscores this bet. Flipkart Internet actually raised over 7,800 crore rupees from its Singapore-based parent across 4 rounds in about a year, which included about 2,225 crores in May earlier this year, about 3,250 crores in April this year, and 2 more fund infusions last year. So clearly, Walmart is betting big on India, both as a growth engine for its international business, but also more importantly as a test bed for its quick commerce ambitions. Back to you.
All right. Many thanks, Shilpa, for joining us. Now, the Supreme Court has stayed its order on relocating stray dogs in Delhi NCR. It has instead directed civic authorities to release the dogs in the same area, but after vaccination and sterilization, as well as deworming. The top court has also banned the practice of feeding dogs in public places and directed authorities to create designated feeding areas. Easier said than done. Ashmit is back with us. Ashmit, relief for animal rights activists, but once again, there are questions there as far as the implementation of this new order from the Supreme Court.
The Supreme Court issuing interim directions, the biggest of them being a stay as far as relocation of stray dogs in Delhi NCR is concerned. There are multiple takeaways here. Let's go through them one by one. Number one, as far as the relocation is concerned, the earlier order said round up the dogs and relocate them. The Supreme Court saying the municipal authorities can round them up, can sterilize them, but there's no need for relocation. They have to be put back where they were picked up from. That's number one. The second is with respect to feeding of stray dogs. Again, a contentious issue between the residents of Delhi NCR across the country as well. Here, the Supreme Court says that the municipal authorities will be tasked of arranging for designated feeding spots. That's the only location where stray dogs can be fed. No other location. The stray dogs cannot be fed on the streets. It's simply barred by the Supreme Court, will be liable for action. That's the second key takeaway. The third, the Supreme Court says, why confine this issue to Delhi NCR alone? The Supreme Court says this is an issue that's pending across various high courts. People across the country have raised similar issues, and therefore the Supreme Court has now issued a notice to all the states, to all the union territories, asked them to come back with a reply on what the next course of action should be. And additionally, the Supreme Court has also said that the animal lovers who are here before the apex court, individuals will have to pay 25,000 and NGOs will have to pay 2 lakh rupees to be able to argue their case here, and that money is to be used for animal shelters.
All right, Ashmit, many thanks for joining us. Well, that is the latest there from the Supreme Court. With that, it is time for us to wrap up this edition of Business 360. The news will continue right here on CNBC TV 18. Stay tuned.